Hey super friends, my name is Neil and welcome to this episode 82 of the Get Your Comic Con podcast. We are here fortnightly-ish to bring you a slice of film, TV and pop culture goodness from our studio direct to your speakers. This episode I'm going to be joined by my very own Man of Steel, James, who has a very special and very cool interview that you're going to get to listen to in a little bit. I've got a couple of news headlines to cover off and as always I have some recommendations for you. But let's start off with the news. Roll that music. Since we last spoke, we got a brand new trailer for the upcoming Scream 6, otherwise sort of known as Scream IV or Scream. The film is coming to cinemas in the UK in March, and this trailer gives us a much better idea about what to expect than the first teaser that came out a few weeks ago. So we now know this is a very different kind of Ghostface killer. Looks like he is very much out to get Gale, played by Courtney Cox, who does return for this film. He also, or she, or they, should I say, do seem to have connections to Sam and her past that was explored a little bit in the previous film. I'm not going to spoil it in case you've not seen Scream 5, but we certainly do see her discussing a potential darkness within, and there is a shot of her holding the bloody Ghostface mask, which clearly is probably going to be some misdirection, but certainly for this trailer is trying to suggest to us that there may be a sort of dark side to her that could be connected to or make her potentially this film's Ghostface. Something which I find really interesting about this trailer is there's a reveal of what seems to be like a trophy room with memorabilia of, I'm going to guess, all of the previous Ghostfaces, which seems like there's a real, it could be related to the Stab movies as well, I suppose. It seems like there's a real legacy sense to the story in this one, and obviously we have Hayden Panettiere back as Kirby, who was last seen in, was it Scream 3 or Scream 4? And she joins the cast this time around in New York, so this again is the first film that's not set in Woodsboro. It's directed again by Matt Bettolini-Olpin and Tyler Gillett, who directed the previous film, and the full cast for it includes so Melissa Barrera, Jasmine Savoy Brown, Mason Gooding, Jenna Ortega, who all returned from the previous film. Then they have Dermot Mulroney, Samara Weaving, Tony Revolori, Jack Champion, Liana Liberato, Devon Nakoda, Josh Segarra, and Henry Zerny. Courtney Cox confirmed to appear, and obviously, as I just said, Hayden Panettiere as well, who returns. No Neve Campbell this time around, which is very well documented, and we don't need to go into that here. They've also released a brand new cast poster, which you can check out over on our website, which is www.getyourcomiccon.co.uk if you haven't been there before. So they've done the usual, where we've had a teaser poster, which is Ghostface's mask. We had a cool New York subway poster that was very much in the theme of this film. And now we have a full cast poster featuring headshots of everyone who is in the film. So we've kind of got our first looks at people like Samara Weaving, who we don't really know quite how they fit in to the story overall, and Tony Revolori, who you'll know from the recent Spider-Man trilogy as well. Just a reminder that the film comes to UK cinemas on March the 10th, 2023, so we'll definitely be bringing you a review for that one closer to the time. Another major story that's broken in the last week, we finally have a teaser trailer for the upcoming second season of Prime Video's Invincible. It's been 2 years, I think, since the first season aired, and we know they've been working on it. They were picked up for a second season very quickly, but we've had no idea when we were going to see any footage from it or when the series would debut. And now we know that it's coming in quote-unquote late 2023. So the teaser is brilliant because they certainly know that fans have been clamouring for some kind of news on when the show would be back. So the teaser, which again you can see on our website, features Invincible, played by Stephen Yeun, and Alan the Alien, voiced by Seth Rogen, sitting together in a diner. So they're in Bergamot, which is a location that's famous from the Invincible world. And the two just discuss the fact that fans are fed up of waiting for news and fed up of waiting for new footage. And poor Invincible explains that he's been very, very hard at work, and there's a nice little montage of footage where he shows us how hard he has been working on new episodes. And as the teaser kind of wraps up, we just get the fact that it is hopefully, maybe, definitely sort of coming in late 2023. So at least we know that we have something to look forward to this year. all being well. What late 2023 means is beyond me, but maybe we're looking at sort of a September, October premiere for brand new episodes. Don't know how many episodes yet, but at least we know that it's coming. Did you check out this teaser trailer? Do you feel frustrated by the fact that we still don't have a premiere date or any real footage from it? Or are you excited that finally Prime is giving us what we're looking for? Let me know. You can find me on social media at Neil Vag, or you can find us at Get Your Comic Con on all major platforms. Finally, this last week also brought us our first look at the returning cast from Mighty Morphin Power Rangers, as it's confirmed exactly who will be involved in Netflix's upcoming special, which is now known to be called Mighty Morphin Power Rangers Once and Always. The teaser video features snippets with David Yost, who played the original Blue Ranger Billy. We've got Walter Jones, who played the original Black Ranger Zack. There's also Catherine Sutherland, who was the second Pink Ranger, so she was Kat. And then we have Steve Cardenas, who was the second Red Ranger at Rocky. We also get to see little snippets of Karen Ashley, the second Yellow Ranger, Aisha, and Johnny Young Bosch, who was the second Black Ranger, Adam. We know that Austin St. John is not involved. We also know that Amy Jo Johnson, the original Pink Ranger, is not involved. She has said that it's not that she turned it down, it was just that it wasn't the right thing for her and that there were other things in the pipeline. And we also know that it had sadly been turned down by Jason David Frank before he passed away in November of 2022. But we do get to see these reunited Rangers. There's footage and stills of them both in costume, in the command centre, out in the field with their morphers, and in action. I think for a while fans weren't sure whether this was going to be a kind of reunited, like almost like the Friends or Harry Potter reunited specials where they sit down and just talk about what it was like to be in the show. But it certainly seems that this is some kind of scripted special that has the Mighty Morphin team, as they are now, reuniting for one final adventure. Other cast members who are expected to return, we believe Barbara Goodson, the voice of Rita, will be returning, as well as Richard Horvitz, who voiced Alpha 5. And then there'll be the new addition of Charlie Kirsch, who plays Min, who is going to be the in-canon daughter of original Yellow Ranger Trini. Obviously, Trini was played by Choi Trang, who passed away at the age of 27 in 2001. So sadly, obviously not involved with this, but they're going to give her a wonderful kind of nod and legacy through this new Ranger played by her daughter. You can check out the video now over on our website, and we'll be bringing you more news on the Power Rangers 30th anniversary very, very soon. That's it for the news this week. Now, let's go into something very, very special. Now, if you know James, then you'll know that he is an absolutely huge Star Wars fan. So he came to me recently and asked about reaching out to someone who you'll hear in a minute to potentially do an interview. Obviously, I said yes. I thought it was going to be an awesome opportunity for him, and I really wanted him to chase it down, and thankfully it happened. And he sat down very, very recently with this person to talk about their very exciting upcoming event and tour, shall we say. And you know what, why don't I leave it to him? He will introduce you now to what you're about to hear, and then you can sit down and listen to this very, very cool interview, which will also be available on our YouTube very, very soon as well, if you want to watch the chat that the two of them had. So over to you, James.
Hello, Super Friends, James here, and I have something very special for you today. The Bournemouth Symphony Orchestra are bringing a Star Wars show on the road, which will be taking fans on a journey throughout Star Wars, doing music from each film and celebrating the music of John Williams. I had the absolute pleasure of talking to the conductor, Pete Harrison, and we discussed things all Star Wars, orchestras, and even the importance of going to concert and how special that experience can be. So check out our full conversation and hopefully see you at the show. Hi, Pete.
Hi, James. Nice to see you.
Nice to see you. Thank you so much for taking time to talk with me about the upcoming kind of Star Wars definitive concert that is doing the rounds. Very excited to go, of course.
Great.
And I was looking at kind of just Star Wars in general, and with a show this kind of big, expanding through the entire Star Wars kind of galaxy, I was just wondering how you went about picking those certain themes, songs, across all, 9 films. How did you go about picking your favourites, or which ones needed to be showcased?
It's such a tough task because there is, as you say, there's so much music in these films that John's written, so many themes, so many things that become part of our culture. That's one of the things I love about John's music. It becomes part of our culture. Look at the 2 notes in Jaws, look at the 5 notes in Close Encounters, and if anything heroic, da 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 da, it was straight away in there. But we are, I suppose, I wouldn't say confined by it, because there are other ways of doing that. But yeah, John is wonderful, and he publishes a lot of his music through his signature editions. So rather than maybe someone doing an arrangement which maybe gets published, or just does the rounds, should we say, it's nice that John's actually published his definitive versions of the music in his signature editions. So there's a lot of those out there now. He has, I suppose, picked the main themes from the original 1977 film, from the Skywalker saga, and then so on. Of course, he's catching up now with the latest ones. We don't have anything from the latest as yet, but no, we certainly do for all the other films. Rise of Skywalker, I think the signature edition isn't out as yet, but that we do have plenty from the other ones, and then from there, it's not really a case of choosing what we don't do. We're pretty much doing all of it, I think, because it's so good. Our big dilemma, I think, as much as anything, was how do we do it? Now, do we do it in order the films came out? Do we do it from series episode 1 right the way through? Do we do it to make it more of a musical balance? So I think, without giving anything away, we do have to start with the main theme. I love that. That was the first note that the trumpet player Maurice Murphy played with the London Symphony Orchestra. His first date with the orchestra as the new principal trumpet there, he goes in and John hits him with that great big down, that chord at the beginning. And as John talked about, when he heard that first chord, he thought, right, this is the guy, this is the orchestra I want. It's wonderful. So that's our dilemma at the moment. We're sort of, which way around do we go? It'd be nice to make a musical balance. So I think we're going to start with that and finish with something suitably big, but we've just got to control the flow throughout. It could be quite tempting just to get big the whole way through, but there is so much beautiful gentle stuff as well. The Leia's theme, Yoda's theme, the Across the Stars, all these sort of more gentle. How do you get a love theme into Star Wars, for God's sakes? But John manages it because he's so wonderful about what he does. So
brilliant. I mean, like you said, that there's so many different ways you can go about it, and I remember I was at the show. I was talking to Heidi. I was at the show just before lockdown, and I remember you, before the show ended, you announced that you were doing a Star Wars definitive collection, and you played Across the Stars on that show. And that's the first time I've heard it live. I've seen many concerts, films, in shows, but that's the first time I've ever heard Across the Stars in concert, and it was so wonderful. And when I heard that you were doing just a show purely dedicated to Star Wars, I was made. I was so happy. So I'm so excited that it's finally here. And it kind of draws me back to this question: what is it about the music of Star Wars, or even John Williams in particular, that kind of resonates with audiences but has allowed it to maintain popularity for decades?
I think John drew on such a vast cultural heritage of music, not just classical music, because he's lots of influences in classical music in there that's more than stood the test of time. But he harks back to the early days when the golden age of cinema, when the likes of Korngold, Franz Waxman first came over from Germany, avoiding the war. That they first appeared was The Adventure of Robin Hood. I think didn't Korngold describe that as a film that literally saved his life, because the Anschluss happened shortly afterwards in Austria, Germany. So he came over. He wasn't intending to, but Korngold was described as a genius when he was about 14. I think it was by Mahler. So he wrote all this wonderful music. A genius like him coming into Hollywood and writing this kind of stuff was just phenomenal. So there's Errol Flynn films, Captain Blood, Seahawk, all these kind of things. The first time you hear and see that music, you go, hang on, where did that come from? It's proper big music. Then it went on an interesting journey after that. going through more contemporary scores, which of course, music has to grow and the industry has to grow. But I think it was John that put this back in again, this full symphony orchestra, re-established it, but not only re-established it, he takes these themes, against not stolen, but lifted, used, borrowed, in great tributes to the likes of Wagner was one of his great heroes. That great ring cycle, there's massive 4 operas that take about a week to perform. That's each one. They go on forever, but there's got such structure through them. And there's the theme for Wotan's Spear, there's a theme for the Rhine, for Brunhilde, for the Valkyrie, all these themes that come back and just help us see where we are, what we're doing within a film. And John absolutely took on that. He embraced that. There's the different themes. Leia's theme is a lovely example. When we finally waited all those years for The Force Awakens to come, however many years that was, we're waiting 20 odd years, wasn't it? And then suddenly out of the shadows of the ship, we see this dark, who's this figure coming through? And you hear Leia's theme playing in the background, and there's this old lady. And there was Leia all those years later. If you hadn't known that music was there, I think that's, for me, is what does it, because he writes such beautiful music, and it ties the film together. Try watching some of the scenes without the music. You watch the end of Force Awakens, the New Hope, without that music playing, the throne room in the end title. It's nothing. It really isn't. There's quite a few examples if you hunt around, or people say, I've listened to this without it or watched it. But isn't that the same of all films? But I think it's just that integrity that John has with his music, harking back to some of the great film composers. As I mentioned, Eric Korngold. There's the famous thing of Korngold and his music to King's Row. That was a very famous piece of music that I wouldn't say John stole from, but it was lightly borrowed for the main theme. But John does a lot of this borrowing, but he does it with such integrity again, and he always puts his own stamp of authenticity on it, which I think is absolutely wonderful. He talks about writing with a cloak of different composers on. It might be Korngold or Strauss or Wagner, Tchaikovsky, Holst, etc. for Star Wars. It might be Aaron Copland for a film like Lincoln. But whatever he does, it's always got that stamp of John on it. And I think that's what's made the films. It's interesting, of course, they re-edited the first 3 films, didn't they? And added all things, even E.T. appears at one point on the new ones. I thought that was a lovely little touch. But the one thing they didn't change was the music, because John does it so well. And there's all the points in the music. John does it old school. He's got the big screen up there. And he's actually just watching, listening. He knows at that point that's coming up, and bang, that's got to fit with that. And proper, really, proper old school, if you see what I mean. So I think that's what makes it work, and that's what made the whole thing work so well. And that's why the music is still so much in our culture, and why concerts like this are still so popular.
It's amazing. It's being able to. There's not an experience like listening to film soundtracks just live with a full orchestra. And I think what separates some of the other shows is you bring such a life to them by interacting with the audience, providing little stories with them. And it almost feels like a journey whenever I see the Bournemouth Symphony Orchestra do it, because it's not just the music, there's also the history behind it, there's reasoning behind it. And I think what's interesting with the kind of like the Star Wars world is you're going to be dealing with fans from different generations, fans that got into Star Wars for different reasons. And kind of with that in mind, where did your Star Wars journey start for you?
1977. I remember that first film, and we saw episode 4 thinking, what have I missed? But when you saw that, and you saw that the scroller disappearing off, and then starts the story, that was it for me. I was hooked. Was I playing things back in the, I guess I was. I've had a sort of musical upbringing. My parents were both musical enough, and we always had music in the house. So I was playing instruments at that point, but certainly not in orchestras. But I just remember being struck by that first chord and the the main title of it, and then how it suddenly changes as we sort of shoot off into space. And I still get even these days get a sort of shiver whenever time we get to that point in the main theme as we disappear off. But that was it for me. Then of course just waiting for the the other films to come out. I mean, I love the fact that they didn't even know they were going to do The Empire Strikes Back and they didn't know the story. A lot of it was just they just made the film. Oh, and actually we're going to do another one. And also that relationship now, won't give anything away in case anybody's still not quite sure. There's lots of, I'm still not quite sure what's going on, to be honest, but it's such a big old thing. But I just love the fact that, they grew it from there, and it kept me utterly gripped. It really did, all the way through. They lost me a tiny bit, maybe in the prequel series. I think some of those bits were, yes, interesting, but the especially culminating in the last film, Rise of Skywalker, is just brilliant. We watched it again the other night here, and my wife hadn't seen it before, and she said, "Oh my God, this is like the proper old ones again. This is really," and she was gripped by it. And again, there's the music, and still using the themes just to help who's who, what's what, and adding new themes in, of course, as well now with Ray and all these new people coming in. It's and again, it just puts it in place. But then when the themes just change a little bit, there was that theme, but then it goes into the major as Kylo Ren becomes Ben again, and suddenly it's there we are. It's it's loads of little subtle touches which I think make all the difference, and it just allows us to go, there we are with it, and it carries us through the whole story, I think. And yeah, that was my start with it. Anyway, I loved it.
Oh, there are so many musical highlights, and you've mentioned so many of them, and my personal ones would Duel of the Fates, which just it's Duel of the Fates,
Yes,
but also
yes.
looking at the kind of sequels and mentioning that subtle change is I absolutely loved Kylo Ren's theme, and I always remember from The Force Awakens it being really dark and brooding, but then as you go through to The Last Jedi and Rise of Skywalker, it almost becomes a lot, I don't know, sadder, I guess, in a way, softer, as you see this evolution of Kylo Ren becoming gradually Ben Solo again.
Yes.
And I love hearing that. It was,
Yes.
Loved that one. And you've mentioned so many of them before. Do you have any particular favorite tracks from across all of Star Wars that really kind of struck a chord with you?
I think Leia's theme is one of my absolute favourites. It really is. It's just, to me, it just works. Something about John's music. If you hear something, and of course everyone's got their own opinions, everyone's got their own taste about food, about culture, about everything, sport, everything. But for me, that theme just works. And whenever we do that in concert, it always, again, I get the goosebumps all over the place. Doing that, that's for me is one of, I think, the greatest bits in, and of course used throughout the film anyway. I say when she reappeared in The Force Awakens, it was there's the music, it's her, isn't it? It was a lovely moment.
It's amazing what composers can do in terms of creating sounds that you immediately identify characters with. I think I love that people are, not that they ever did, but I love that people are understanding more how important music is in terms of the big blockbuster. And looking back at films in concert and playing the orchestral suites live, do you think our relationship with film soundtracks has changed across the years?
Yeah, definitely. There's so many things to say about this. I think a neighbour of mine came and saw a concert we were doing with Bournemouth a while ago, and he was just blown away. He said, there's nothing false in that room. It's you and a bunch of musicians all plucking, scraping, squeaking, blowing, doing something, and they all come together and they make the sound. And he said that sound was just electric. He said I was kind of gripped from the outset of it. So for me, bringing these film music concerts, which is incredibly accepted these days. There was a time it was really looked down upon. Classical music, film stuff, classical music is the thing. But I think, again, thanks to the likes of John Williams, my gosh, we could mention James Horner, Jerry Goldsmith, etc., with all these, as well as Zimmer as well. You could add all these in, but I think what they've done is that they've made it, I wouldn't say acceptable, but the fact that Classic FM have programs now, Radio 3 has a program. I've just been doing some work in Germany, Classic Radio, their equivalent over there. We're just doing a film music concert over there. It's very much part of it, and that's what gets bums on seats these days. So that the nice thing I always try and say is, if you've enjoyed this film music concert tonight, come and see the orchestra again. It's, because you'll hear that, but you'll hear the original sources of inspiration for John. You'll hear Tchaikovsky, you'll hear Wagner, you'll hear Korngold, and so on, in slightly different terms. Maybe it's the Korngold Violin Concerto, beautiful piece of music, but you listen to that, you can hear bits of Star Wars in it, you can hear bits of E.T. in it. That for me is fantastic, and I love the fact that I can just refer to, maybe, I don't know, Bridge of Spies, that very end theme of that, where Tom Hanks comes in, collapses on the bed, and there's a thing on the news, and his wife said, "Were you anything to do with that?" And he was sound asleep. You take that music, I can mention that, play the music, and everyone goes, "Wow, yes, I remember that." If you didn't have the music, and two actors came in and just did the scene to no music, little bit dull, I suspect. So, I think it's made audiences realise that the power of the orchestra, and I hope, just made the orchestra a bit more popular again as a night out. I still think it's one of the greatest nights out you could ever have. Go and see an orchestra somewhere. We were just recently in America, and I always look out to see what orchestra was playing in Portland, up in Seattle at the time, and go and see them, because different orchestra, different world, different country, different everything. It's going to be a different sound, and that's one of the highlights of our trip. I think for me that was so.
Absolutely, it's such a wild experience, and whenever I see kind of the Bournemouth Symphony Orchestra in in my hometown, the energy always it's always so vibrant. You're always getting people involved, especially I think one of my favorites was anytime it's Williams versus Zimmer. It's like you're trying to start a fight here with one who you prefer, and everyone gets involved, and it's so much fun. It's about the music, but it's also about the differences between composers and the similarities between composers. And I think as a conductor, you spend a lot of your time with your back towards us. You don't get to see us, but the audience reactions, the energy in the room, how does that make you feel when you're on stage?
You can really feel it. You really can. Even though, as you say, I'm presenting the wrong end of me, as it were, to the audience. But you can definitely feel it. I remember in early days of doing things like this, coming off at the interval and saying, "Oh God, it feels a bit dead out there." But my wife was in the audience, and she said, "It's absolutely not. They are gripped, and because they're so gripped by the music, what you're doing, and the colours you're making, and the picture. Then you've taken that into that, and I try and do a few little things. I might put the Zimmer stuff, Gladiator and Pirates of the Caribbean together, because he uses the same music. I might put some Seahawk next to E.T., because that was the piece of music Spielberg said to him, "Have a listen to that music from Seahawk by Eric Korngold," and that's the kind of thing we want for the music for E.T. So that's I love putting little things like that together. So audiences can be quieter sometimes, but then suddenly at the end, all up on their feet, shouting and screaming. But it does. You can feel it, and I think, oh, have we not nailed this one? What we haven't quite got right? But my wife would just say, "No, it's okay. They are loving it. It's just because they're loving it. They're just being really quiet and absorbed." I hate it when I go to concerts and the conductor or the presenter or whatever, "Come on, stand up, come on." It's like, well, no, if I don't want to stand up, forgive me, I'm not going to. I'm really enjoying it, but or maybe I'm not enjoying it, but don't make me do something I don't want to do. And the audiences must feel very welcome, and I want them to just have their ears open and just enjoy. And I want to catch them there, right in the middle of it, where it's well, not where it hurts, but I want them to come away with a little bit of a tear and been taken places, maybe have a few goosebumps along the way. I think that's important. Wagner did a lovely thing. One of the film concerts we did the funeral march from Tristan, and he does a thing there. He said, Wagner, he made his own theatre because it wasn't big enough. But for that point, all the lights go out and he floods the stage with fog from the River Rhine as the funeral procession appears. So he said, this music has to be listened to. Don't want anything else going on. You just need to listen to this music. Then as the funeral procession goes, then it does get into a bit more into the scene. But it's like when you get silence in a film. Silence can be incredibly powerful sometimes, can't it? Too much music, and if you haven't got the spotting sessions right, then that's an awful thing. So but if I can get the audiences to do a bit of that, then that's the important thing for me.
It's like I said, it's an amazing experience just being able to sit, and it's so different compared to other trips to the theatre or trips to your local venue, because if you're watching pantomimes, there's that audience participation. If you're watching a show, there are moments to laugh at, there are moments to get involved with. But whenever I see the Bournemouth Symphony Orchestra or any films being done live, it's just utter silence. You're really kind of getting involved in the scene, and where it's like a compilation of all the greatest hits, it just takes you on a journey, like reliving your favorite moments. And I think that's what's really special about what you do and what you bring to fans specifically, is it's a journey from from your very first moment in Star Wars to the present day. And I don't think that can ever be replaced, ever.
No.
Like it's not listening to the music in the film. You hear it for the first time, it's absolutely mind blowing. But there is something so innocent and pristine about hearing it live. I don't think people who haven't experienced a concert don't understand what it's like being able to hear your favorite track being played to you right in front of you.
Exactly. And with warts and all as well, we will make mistakes. There will be, you might get a funny noise. You might get somebody sneezing or burping loudly in the seat next to you. So all part of the fun of going to a live concert. But that is the whole point of it. We get very used to listening to CDs where, you can spend a whole day doing a few tracks on a CD just to get them absolutely right. But no, you're dead right. It's that live performance and that live feeling. And I think the beauty about John's music is that you can feature a whole evening of his music, either just from one series of films. I mean, that's remarkable in itself. That imagine trying to do that with John Barry. So you could do all of Out of Africa, which is great. Or you could do, a best of John Barry, Dances with Wolves and Zulu and so on and so on. But even that would still, after a little bit, might get a little bit samey, I wonder. Same with Zimmer. He's got a slightly broader breadth by the time you go back to Beautiful Laundrette and Miss Daisy and all those kind of things, and come right up to date with Interstellar. But I think John has got such a broad brushstroke. If you take all his things from the Memoirs of a Geisha, that kind of sound world, through to Tintin, through to, there's so much. We're not even doing that. We're just doing Star Wars, for goodness sake. So, but there's enough in there. And as you say, hearing it live is nothing like it. There really isn't. I still get goosebumps, as I say, now, and I've got the best seat in the house, pretty much. So
brilliant. And one last question, anyway. I feel like it might be a bit of a tricky one for you. Do you have a favorite film soundtrack, like in general, just one that maybe a specific track, or just a film that you think has a very memorable soundtrack that just stays with you?
Good question. Can I do two or not?
Yes. No. There are no rules. You can have as many.
They are both John. Jaws, first one for me. I think that was the first one where he tied all his, thoughts and ideas from his early days working. He worked with some of the great Hollywood greats, Herman, he worked with a lot. And of course, Herman worked with Hitchcock, and that Hitchcock relationship with those two, and him and Spielberg, I draw lots of parallels there. But I think that theme in Jaws, just the two notes. And Spielberg thought he was joking when he first played it to him, but then realized he wasn't. But also, just as well, because that flipping shark didn't work, did it? That mechanical one. called Bruce after Spielberg's lawyer, but for the reality, they filmed it all out at sea, took it out, turned it on, and it sunk. So that I love that story. But that's when the music became into it, because isn't it a better film when you see the camera going through the water and you see people splashing away in the distance, and then you suddenly hear, bum, 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 bum. Oh my God, goosebumps already. You think, oh, that became scarier than any slightly rubbish plastic shark or mechanical shark, so, but it's just the way he builds all that and the way he uses the music to complement all the scenes. And it's his first so I suppose using these themes, these leitmotifs, and first time properly tied it all together. And the film and the music absolutely like this. There's that for me, just because of that as much as anything else. Such a groundbreaking film. But the other one for me is E.T. I just love the film E.T. It's the music is stunning. Again, very Korngold based. A nice little tribute to, I think to Tex Avery, wasn't it, the cartoonist? And you don't see any adults apart from Elliot's mum above the waist for the first half of the film. It's all below the waist for any adults. So the guy in the forest on the wood you see is legs downwards, like in all the Tom and Jerry films, cartoons. It's a little tribute because it focuses more on the kids. They filmed it all in absolute order as well as it came. They didn't do bit of this, bit of that, just because of all the the young actors involved, just to help it make it a bit easier for them. So so. Not just all those things. I mean, those are just lovely little touches between Williams and Spielberg, and a trust between those two. The music at the end, Adventures on Earth, which we've done with Bournemouth a few times, but it's a great piece of music. You've got the chase scene as E.T., Elliot, and all his chums are escaping from the police. Then the wonderful flying theme as E.T. does his magic. Then they land a very sad farewell before E.T. reunites and blasts off back out in space again. But it's a huge piece of music. It's about 12, 15 minutes long. And John, being old school, as they had the big screen up there, he'd be conducting where you've got to get a few hit points where this happens, that happens. He manages the first one. The next bit, somebody splits a note. Right, so we've got to start again. And so on and so on. And eventually Spielberg just said to him, tell you what, John, forget that. Turn the screen off and just play it. Just play it as you feel it, as you want it to happen. And we'll re-edit the film around the music. You just don't ever see that. But what a lovely trust between those two and their understanding from the moment they first met. I think they both went, wow. I think John said about Spielberg, he said he knows more than he's forgotten more than I know about film music and about films, which I love that idea. He's had the knowledge and he's forgotten more than John Williams ever knows. So, John famously doesn't ever go to the cinema. He never really listens to music. He's often said this because his head is so full of it. And when you've worked on a film and you sat in the editing suite and the dubbing suite for seen a film 50 times, I thought of going and seeing it again. And he's such a perfectionist. He's always listening to things and going, oh no, the bass is too heavy in this theatre, what's going on? So it's almost a curse, I'd have thought, for him, don't you reckon?
I think so, yeah. It's two wonderful choices though, and that's definitely brought back memories seeing Jaws for the first time, but also watching E.T. recently, and I want to go back and rewatch it for that little bit of trivia that you mentioned.
Yes,
some fantastic choices, and that was all my questions out, and it's been such a pleasure talking to you about music, and I cannot wait to experience the Star Wars definitive concert. And I don't think people are quite prepared for the show that you're going to put on for them. And it's been so interesting being able to talk to someone who likes film soundtrack and who actually is heavily involved in it, and it's a personal passion of mine, and just being able to kind of learn from the other end of it has been really, really illuminating. So thank you for taking the time to talk to me about all this as well.
No, my pleasure, James. Well, thank you for bringing it to to attention of all your listeners and viewers here, because I think the more people we can get to come to these things, as video games get closer to cinema, they'll become one. They really will. And the composers these days are writing for video game music as they are for film. It's GYCO's done both famously from his early film stuff and his early video game music. They're getting closer and closer together, and they will just become one. And the more that people can realize, okay, great listening to those tracks, but go and see them live. They are amazing. Bring your tissues, bring a big smiley face and all the rest of it. You're going to get the lot. You really are. So it's a whole gamut of emotions. So yes,
can't wait.
Fantastic.
Perfect.
Thanks. Cheers.
Before we wrap up, I have a couple of recommendations for you. First up, a brand new TV series, which is debuting this week on Paramount Plus. You have Wolfpack. Now, some of you will have thought of this as a Teen Wolf spin-off, and I know I've referred to it as a Teen Wolf spin-off before. That is not the case. That may have been the case originally, but it's not the case now. It is executive produced by Jeff Davis, who did executive produce and write on the Teen Wolf series and the Teen Wolf movie, which also streams this week on Paramount Plus. But this series is something very, very different. It's based on a book series by Ido van Belkom, and it follows a teenage boy and girl whose lives are changed forever when a California wildfire awakens a terrifying supernatural creature and drives it to attack a highway traffic jam beneath the burning hills. Wounded in the chaos, the boy and girl are inexplicably drawn to each other and to two other teenagers who were adopted 16 years earlier by a park ranger after another mysterious wildfire. As the full moon rises, all four teens come together to unravel the secret that connects them, the bite and blood of a werewolf. Now, the reason I'm recommending you this show, because I actually haven't seen it yet, is it is also the return of Sarah Michelle Gellar, aka Buffy the Vampire Slayer. She's executive producing and stars in the series as a fire investigator who is looking into these strange, mysterious wildfires and will be drawn into, presumably, the mystery surrounding the wolves. What I've seen of it, it looks very, very cool. It's going to be a fun show for teens. It's going to be an amazing show for Buffy fans as a kind of legacy. Here's Sarah Michelle Gellar back in sci-fi. I am actually going to a very special event this week as I am recording this, where I may well be sharing air with Sarah Michelle Gellar for a Q&A session about the series. But you'll be able to stream episode 1 in the US from Thursday the 26th of January and here in the UK from Friday the 27th. New episodes will air in the UK on Fridays, the day after they stream in the US. So that is my TV recommendation for this week. I have a comic book recommendation for you as well. I want you to go and check out Justice Society of America from DC Comics. It releases issue 2 this week. It's written by Jeff Johns and features artwork by Mikkel Janin, Jerry Ordway and Scott Callan. It's written by Jeff Johns. Did I just say that? I've just had a mental blank. It's a really brilliant series, and it brings back a surprising character who has been missing from continuity for a long, long time, and it ties to the Stargirl, The Lost Children series, which is also written by Johns and is releasing at the moment. It's a very cool legacy. I don't want to say too much because I don't want to spoil it if you've not read it. It's a very cool legacy DC series, which is tying together some disparate bits of continuity and making sure that some of the highlights of DC continuities past. So remember, we've had kind of the New 52 era, the Rebirth era, etc., etc. This is sort of making sure that all of the best bits of DC's history exist in the current timeline. They're kind of going through a slight transitional period where they're not doing a relaunch in terms of here is a new era, but what they're doing is pulling everything together and making sure that they have all their best bits of storytelling at hand, ready and connected, so that as we move into 2023 and into the future, they've got the best of the best in their lineup. It's a really beautiful series. It's really well written, and I don't want to say too much more because it has some wonderful connections to some really cool bits of the DCU that haven't been explored for a while. But go check it out. The story actually starts in the new Golden Age special, which was released just before Christmas. And then you have issues 1 and 2 of Justice Society of America available now, as well as issues 1 to 3 of Stargirl, The Lost Children. Those two aren't heavily connected yet, but I feel they might be down the line, so it is worth reading both. Plus, it's a great Courtney story anyway, which who doesn't want more Stargirl after the series has come to an end? So you can pick up those in comic book stores now. Now, in the last episode, I know I said I had some interviews coming up, and that was not the interview that is available in this episode. When we return with our next episode, we'll be talking about DC's upcoming animated movie Legion of Superheroes, and we'll be joined by director Jeff Wamster, writer Josie Campbell, and also by voice actor Yuri Lowenthal, who plays Mon-El in the film. There might be a couple more, but we'll have to wait and see. So they'll be joining us next episode to chat about that film, which releases on DVD and Blu-ray in the UK on February the 6th, and on digital platforms on February the 7th. So, until next time, stay safe, stay well, and I will see you soon. Bye!